Welcome to the PRovoke Media podcast. I'm Megan Miller, head of content partnerships at PRovoke and host of today's episode. Today we bring you perfecting the partnership with Coyne Public Relations. In this episode, we discuss the critical role that agencies play in helping brands reach their target audiences. Who should you be working with? How should you go about identifying them? And how can you decide what's the best activation? To address these questions, we have two guests who are joining us on today's podcast. Jackie Peskin is Vice President at Coyne Public Relations, working in the agency's food and nutrition practice. And Dave Holdsworth is Vice President Marketing at Eggland's Best, the #1 branded egg in the US. Jackie, Dave, nice to have you here. Jackie, why don't you give us a little background about you, and then we can throw it to Dave and do some intros here and kick things off.
So I'm, as you said, a VP here at Coyne PR and our consumer team, specifically working on our kind of food and nutrition brands. I kind of do a lot of the overarching strategy, working with the teams. And I also recently got my master's in nutrition, so it's definitely a passion for me, which is one of the reasons I love working with Dave and the team on Eggland's Best. But we're always looking for unique ways to bring brands to life and really reach those niche target audiences for those brands.
Nice to have you here.
Thanks.
And Dave, why don't you give us a little background about you and go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll get into it.
I'm Dave Holdsworth. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Eggland's Best. I'm responsible for the Eggland's Best brand and most of our shell egg business. I'm based in Northern Jersey, right outside of Morristown. Fun place if you've never been there. Right outside New York. Good times. I've been in consumer packaged good food marketing for about 25 years. General Mills, Land Lakes, Polaris. And before that, interesting fact, I was actually a nuclear engineer and an officer on submarines. So a little bit different background than some people you might talk to.
A fascinating career transition, which I am hopeful that we'll get a little more color to later as we unpack things here. But thank you both for being here. Jackie, why don't you kind of kick things off here a little bit, talking about your partnership through Coyne and Eggland's Best, and sort of like why this conversation makes sense today, and really interested if you can just talk to us a little bit about how Coyne markets itself as being, particularly apt for partnerships.
Absolutely. So yeah, we've been working with Eggland's Best for 10 plus years at this point. Specifically, Dave and I have been working together. I've known him now probably 6+ years, working closely on the brand. And there's all sorts of things you can do for brand campaigns and generating awareness. And I know we're trying to build brand awareness for Eggland's Best, drive trial for their superior nutritional product. And, we're always, like I said, we're trying to find unique ways to reach audiences, especially today. It's such a crowded CPG space. The media is ever evolving, and it's just getting harder and harder to break through. So we really tried to look at, what's going to make this unique? How can we be a little bit disruptive? How can we look for, potential partners to help amplify and really just convey our message, making sure that it's credible and also authentic to who the brand is. And so Coyne here, we really take an approach where we're mining for the news. We have our ears to the ground, trying to look for those opportunistic, opportunities so that we can organically insert our brands into what's already happening and reach consumers really where they already are. I think that's the key. We're all really busy these days, especially these past years have been, it can be a little rough on people and being pulled in multiple directions. So we're just looking to really make it as easy as possible to reach our target audience with a message that they're going to be amenable to.
Yeah. Dave, can you talk a little bit about like the value of the partnership that you've experienced with Coyne and what that unique perspective of like a nutrition vertical has brought to your business at Eggland's, or why working with a agency that has that nutrition vertical?
Absolutely. So it's interesting. Our brand, I've worked in a lot of food businesses throughout the years, and it's nice working on Eggland's Best because you don't have to spin the message. we are actually better than the competition. We've been proven to taste better. We have superior nutrition, more vitamin D, vitamin E, you name it. We're probably more superior in nutrition in whatever aspect you look at. So we are looking for ways to really break through with consumers, to get in front of them in different ways, to get our message across. Better tasting nutrition, it's an easy message, but you want to do it in new and different ways all the time. You can't just be talking to the same people over and over and over. So you want to find a partner, especially on the PR side, that really gets it, that isn't going to try to pigeonhole you into some campaign that really doesn't have anything to do with the fundamentals of your brand. And Coyne is very good at that. I joined the company a little over 9 years ago, and we'd been working with Coyne PR for about 2 years before that. So I kind of watched them for a year. And after a year, our CEO came and said, I want you to assess, are they the right partner? Do you want to stick with them, or should we go out and look for an outside group? I said, I think this is the group we want to work with, because it's almost like they're an extension of our company. We are a big brand at retail, but we function as a company more like a small company. We don't have a lot of people. So we need strong outside partners that get us. And Coyne has been a great partner, and they get us. And that's very important for us.
Can you speak to, I don't know if this might be asking you to jog your memory a bit, but some of those early campaigns or early work that Coyne did when you were first sort of evaluating that convinced you that they were a thought leader in this space, or things that stuck out to you that were like, that's why we need that partner, or why they are particularly above and beyond?
Well, there's a lot of partnerships we've done over the years. I can't think back to the exact ones from way back 10 years ago, but one that we've done in the past few years is our partnership with Lifetime Fitness. I'm sure we'll get to talk about that a little bit. So research is a big part about, you need to do research to really understand your consumers and how to reach them better and how they use your products. So Coyne, we knew we wanted to reach a health-focused consumer. Coyne went out and did a lot of research on various partners we could partner with, and they came back with Lifetime Fitness. Used to be, you're in Minnesota, Lifetime used to go to them in Maple Grove, Minnesota, but big national fitness conglomerate out there. But the consumers, they're in the mindset of health. And we learned that consumers that are working out are much more likely to eat healthier, care about the nutrition in their products. And maybe most importantly, after they go to the gym, I think about 2/3 of them had right to the grocery store for looking for healthy products. Bing, bing, that's a win for us. So Coyne came back and said, we think this is a partner we should work with. Came up with a lot of touch points in the program, and it really did well for us. We did a consumer program with couponing in the Lifetime Fitness locations, and it blew the doors off our projections on coupon projections. So my budget got blown out of the water, but that's a good thing to have when people were doing coupons. So that was one of the things Coyne did that really stuck in my mind as a good program that they brought to us.
Yeah. Running across the street from that Highland Park one over to Lund's and Byerly's, pick up their eggs right after.
Exactly.
Very good. Jackie, can you tell me a little bit more about what goes into that kind of research when you're doing that consumer research? What are some of the maybe tried and true ways, but also some of the more innovative ways that you guys have said about doing some of that preliminary research about a consumer and finding the right partner?
So a lot of times brands will have consumer insights and research that we're digging through, but other times we're really trying to dig and just vetting various trends. So we have a couple of platforms and things that we use here at Coyne, and one in particular that we've used recently is Alexa, and it actually lets you look at profiles of your consumer. And so based on interest, so if there's a high affinity for, let's say, home decor, and you can look at certain age ranges, certain geographical areas, and you can also see what are like-minded brands. So when you're looking for partnerships, when you're using this tool, you might discover that, oh, wow, I didn't realize that our target was so interested in gaming or entertainment or things like that. And so when you're looking for partners, you may look for someone a little bit more unexpected, because even though maybe you're a food brand, We've been seeing this a lot in the media with disruptive brands coming out with all sorts of collaborations and wacky items, right? I think what it comes down to is making sure whatever that is truly authentic to your brand and your ultimate consumer, target consumer. So this platform can kind of help us uncover different unique passions or interests of the consumers that then we can say, hey, that's interesting. Why don't we think of a partnership or collaboration in a different way based on this? That might be something we would have never even thought about in the past. And so that's one way we've been trying to just kind of think outside the box and bring together, the team here. We brainstorm across verticals here. So even though I'm the consumer team and really focus on that food and nutrition, we've got our healthcare team, we've got a sports team. So we also work really great together in the sense, hey, you know what, let's brainstorm with a couple of different areas because they might think about this in a whole new way or bring another layer to it. Or even if a client comes to us with an existing program or partnership, we can look at it through a different lens. So those are just a couple of different ways we try and look at it uniquely so that we can come back with something that's a little bit unexpected and has a little bit more breakthrough power especially from an earned media perspective.
I always kind of talk about like partnerships is like the Venn diagram, if you will. There's your agency or the prospective partners, and you have your brand, and it's that little sweet spot in the middle where those surprises might actually exist. And it's I'm intrigued now to ask, what have some of those surprises been? I don't know, either one of you can field this one, but some of the places where you were a little more like, that wasn't traditional, that feels a little outside of the box.
Yeah, I think, recently we actually have a program going on right now with the home edit, the home organization sensation that's kind of hit. And I know when we looked at our consumer profile and we're digging into those insights, we saw that home decor and design was a very big interest for that specific target for Eggland's Best. And so when we first brought the idea to Dave and the team, I think they were like, what does this have to do with eggs, right? Like, organizing your fridge in your home. And, we dug a little bit deeper, and me being a little bit of a nutrition junkie, dug into some research and found, there's a lot of stuff out there that say how you organize your fridge can actually help you eat healthier. So, keeping your produce and your fresh whole foods front and center, not letting them get hidden in the back where you find them, 3 months later, not sure what it turned into. But essentially, we're like, I think there's something really interesting here, pairing these, celebrity organizer sensations with potentially our registered dietitian, so that, we can talk about partners on an individual level as well, but pairing them with an RD to talk about, okay, you guys are the experts in organization. We've got an expert in nutrition. Let's blend those worlds together and see if we can come up with a really fun program. And that's actually what's going on right now. We've teamed up with them to do some really awesome content, fridge organization, but really adding that nutritional layer, really highlighting Eggland's Best as that nutritious whole food that every, American family should have in their fridge. And that it's a great prep item, right? Prepping also makes you eat healthier. So we just found a lot of insights. We're having a lot of fun with it right now, and consumers could even win a fridge. So again, just including some fun elements and getting consumers to engage with us. But that was definitely something I would say a little bit unexpected for the brand.
And that was, and every year when we usually do our planning, we like to finish up the plan in October, November, so we're ready to go for the next year. And we usually do our planning brief midsummer. And we always say to Coyne, it's okay to push us, make us a little uncomfortable on some things. Don't just do the same cookie cutter things every year, because it gets rote, a little boring. We want to reach new people. So what that leads to is sometimes they come back with things that actually make us a little uncomfortable. The home edit's the perfect example. When they brought it to us, I'm like, you guys are freaking crazy. I don't know, how does this fit in with nutritious eggs? It doesn't fit. And they said, wait a second, trust us. And they took us through it. And we said, you know what? You're right. I kind of jokingly have a saying in marketing that consumers are stupid, but they're smarter than marketers. So you have to sometimes take off your marketer and look at what the consumers really want and are consuming. And it makes more sense. You can't just look at everything through your own lens, or you're going to miss stuff. So this was one where Coyne brought it to us, and we a little bit pressed the I believe button, and it's been doing well for us.
Yeah, it really is so easy to market to ourselves when we're thinking from the mindset of being a marketer. Like, we know our bubble, we know the people we surrounded, we know our interests, and it's so uncomfortable sometimes to like trust that outside of the bubble perspective.
Yep.
How, if you don't mind, if we can keep talking a little bit about this home edit one, I'm picturing these Instagram feeds right now with all of the like beautifully organized eggs, and my initial thought was, well, how do you brand it? Like, how do you co-brand when all those eggs are now in organized containers and the Eggland's box is missing from how they reorganize those fridges? But like, what have some of the activations kind of, how have they come to life? And is it, you know, like endorsements, or do you do some lookalike audiences? What has been some of the like more effective ways of marketing a product that inherently doesn't have a label on it if it's not in a box?
So interestingly enough, Eggland's Best eggs have a cute little EB stamp on them. So you really can actually see the difference even just in the egg in the fridge. And you know, that was definitely a bit of a challenge up front, right? And we always talk about partnerships that, you know, we say it's kind of like dating, right? Like when you're vetting them, you want to make sure you've got, you know, common interests, common values, and you want to make sure you're kind of managing those expectations so you don't get too far in. And you know, I think there's always compromise in our relationship too. And so when we're working with these collaborators, like a home edit, they know what performs best on their channels, right? Just like we know our brand inside and out. And so when working with them, it did come up to be a little bit of a challenge. You know, our branding is on our packaging, right? That's where our nutritional messaging is. And, you know, they have their containers that they like to put them in pretty. And so we compromise, right? So we have some content that shows, you know, Eggland's Best eggs in our packaging in the fridge, because let's be honest, there are consumers that don't really understand, why do I need to take my egg out of a box to put it into another box, right? And so we also want to be inclusive and not make this feel so, you know, unachievable. And that's where our registered dietitian came in too, because her whole motto is like making nutrition accessible and easy. And so putting that layer on it, we were able to kind of look at it both ways. And because Eggland's Best has this cute little EB red stamp on there, we do have branding on the egg that when in that container, you can see that. But majority of the content, we did compromise that. You know, the packaging was key for us. It's how consumers recognize us, you know, in the aisle. And so they were willing and able, and we worked together to put that, you know, in the fridge and create some really fun content, organizational content that went up on their pages that we were able to cross promote and target, and then drive as well to our sweepstakes, and then leveraging our registered dietitian, of course, in, you know, earned media outreach, radio media tour. So just looking how else can we just get eyeballs on this and generate some awareness, even with some of those grassroots tactics, that's ultimately just going to elevate the brand overall. And I think looking for that partner, you know, we looked at the home edit because of this insight, but then when we looked further, we used a program called Julius to really look at the back, you know, the insights behind the profile. And so we're able to dig in and see that they're hitting our direct audience. They have a high engagement. And so that just all helped us know that this program was going to be successful when we kicked that off.
Dave, when you are thinking about, like, you know, as this program's underway and it felt a little like outside of the comfort zone or like outside of the logical initially, what are some of the like factors or milestones that you look to in evaluating, like, is this partnership making sense? Is it like, how are you kind of measuring on your own turf?
I mean, first off, you have to make sure that whatever partner you work with, if you're talking an individual or people, they have to actually be fans of the product. If they say, I don't eat eggs, or I really don't like your product, you know, we don't want that, because it's not a natural fit. We want, when someone's talking about our product, we want it to come from the heart, because it really is a better tasting, more nutritious product. So that has to come organically from them. And once that happens, they have to, you know, check a lot of the boxes. You know, they have the right audience. They speak well about the product. They're willing to feature the product in a positive way. If they come up with a recipe, it's got to be a nutrition it could be a great tasting product, but they have to be willing to talk about the nutrition that the product adds to a cake. It now has vitamin E than the cake you would make otherwise, things like that. And they have to be willing to feature the product in a way consumers recognize. Like Jackie talked about, a lot of our nutrition is on our packaging. It's very recognizable. It's a quick snapshot of why we're better. But the good thing about our product, like Jackie says, is the eggs themselves are actually branded as well. It's got the Eggland's Best stamp. And I got to tell you, it is really hard to teach all those chickens out there to lay the little stamps on it. I'm just kidding. But those are the kind of things we look for.
Can I ask, that stamp, was that strategically placed or decided on so that you could also handle branding when it was outside of the package, or is that like a different sort of
it's two things. One, it's additional branding for the product, but also it's a quality stamp that consumers know. If I see that stamp, whether I'm in Maine or California, I'm going to get the same great tasting, better nutrition product, no matter where I am, and I can trust it.
Yeah. How long have you guys had that on the product? All time,
coming up on 30 years. I mean, the
okay.
Eggland's really launched in its current form in the early 90s. So we've had a stamp on the product pretty similar to the current stamp since the beginning.
Yeah. And you guys have been working together for 13, 15?
Coyne PR, I think it's 11, 12 years now.
Yeah, 11, 12 years or so.
Yeah, longer than Jackie's been married.
Yeah. I feel like it's an unfair question then for me to ask you, Jackie, like what it was like to come into like such a legacy brand, but perhaps either, I don't know, how long had you, Dave, been at the company?
I've been a little over 9 years.
Okay, so you like the legacy part was already well in place when you both came, and it wasn't a shift together. But I don't know if you're able to talk about it, or if you know kind of like historically, like have there been tenets of the brand that have stayed tried and true for the last 30 years? Are there things that, Jackie, like you're being tasked with, paying homage to or keeping intact? Like you're juggling something like in 30 years spectrum is quite a different marketing approach, audience wise.
Jackie, let me take that and then I'll pass it to you. But our brand motto has been better taste, better nutrition, better eggs. And that's been it from day one in the early 90s up until today. So everything from the brand comes from that. We might do evolutions from that, but everything has to be based on better taste, better nutrition, better eggs. Well, Jackie, your nickel.
Yeah. And I would say kind of coming into it, because, I've been working on this brand for about 6 years within that legacy story, right? And so when I came in, I think it's how we communicate, and Dave kind of hit that, right? Like they know who they are. We know who Eggland's Best is. And so I think the challenge is, how do we keep that fresh, and how do we stay relevant, and how do we stay top of mind with consumers, media, influencers? How do we break through it? Again, I think everyone can agree, especially in this industry, that it's just getting harder and harder to break through. And so coming in, kind of just looking at, what are we doing? What's working? What's not working? How can we continue to evolve the brand? Are there ways that maybe we weren't thinking about, and how we can make this nutrition relevant? And I think even looking in the past 2 years in a pandemic, right, it was such a roller coaster, right? At first, there's all the research coming out. Consumers are eating worse. This is terrible, right? This is terrible for their health, their mental health, their physical health, all that kind of stuff. People are sinning. And then it started to come out, well, now actually people are spending a little bit more time on their wellness, and they're actually trying to take that self-care, right? And really focus on their nutrition, because they've had a minute to kind of realize, wow, like this is a health scare for the world, right? And we need to take better care of ourselves. So I think that's where we can come in and provide a unique perspective and have a tap on what's going on in the news and what trends are happening, so that we can organically insert ourselves into that conversation, and not in a way that we're talking at our consumer and saying, yes, you should be having this nutrition and blah, 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 right? I think it's more about, we provide a superior product because we truly believe that every family should have access to this superior nutrition in an easy, whole food way, right? We're not selling all these different gimmicks. It's a whole food that is nutrient dense. And I think that's where finding the right partners and registered dietitians to add credibility and convey that messaging, especially in this environment, has really resonated with consumers. So I would say definitely a challenge when you have a brand that long, you want to keep them relevant, keep them fresh. But I think making sure that you're moving along with the trends and rolling with them and trying to stay with it is really important across the board.
Dave, you kind of segued us there, Jackie, but I was going to say, we have this product that has been in a part of our lives for as long as most of us have been eating and consuming.
Yes,
but
some of you, I'm a little older, but yes.
But I am curious, I'm sure that there were still challenges you faced during the pandemic. Like, everybody's marketing has been impacted. Everybody's story has been impacted. And I don't know if there's got to, I'm assuming that there's something that doesn't occur to most of us that Eggland's was facing during the pandemic marketing, and maybe there wasn't, but I don't know.
There were. I'll throw out a couple. You probably remember when the pandemic first hit hard, you couldn't find toilet paper anywhere. You couldn't find cleaners. The other thing you couldn't find on the shelf was eggs. So we looked at that, and for about 6 weeks, it was very hard, because you can run, if you're making, Hostess cakes, you can run a third shift and produce more Hostess cakes. You can't do that with chickens. You can't tell them to, let's lay more eggs. You only have a certain amount of production. It takes a while to get them up and running. So when consumers were running to the grocery store and buying out everything, we saw that this is not a good situation. We can't be out there heavily advertising and doing PR. So we for about 2 months, we dialed back as much as we could, because we didn't want to be out there promoting when people were having a hard time finding it on the shelf. So we then came back when the supply evened out a little bit. We doubled down and increased our spend to get people back on our product. But we also found, and Jackie, I'm sure you can talk about this, the pandemic, it was difficult in a lot of ways, but it also presented some new opportunities. Jackie came to us and said, we know consumers are not going to the gym to work out during the pandemic. Let's look at other options here. And we came up with a partnership with the Daily Burn, which is an online fitness program. We partnered with them during the pandemic, did very well for us, but we reached consumers in a new and different way that we probably wouldn't have pivoted towards if the pandemic hadn't happened. So,
yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say, I think during that time, it just shows how quickly you might need to pivot and be a little bit nimble. We were signing contracts with partners, and I think, especially a lot of people who might be listening can relate. We're trying to roll that back in an unprecedented situation. Takes a lot of time, a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion across the board. But I think what was, unique to this relationship is that we really know the brand well, and Dave and I, we go back, the brand goes back. So we were able to work really closely to find a solution and bring various solutions to the team that wasn't going to, where we were peeling back, but we were still able to come back with kind of a revamped plan. And I know across the board, even at Coyne, it was just a little bit of a crazy time with just trying to replan and also replan again, because you'd replan and then the next couple months are like, and we're still staying home, right? So I think we were constantly having to be nimble and just open-minded, and just kind of taking it all in and going with the punches, because no one knew what was going to happen, if we were going to be back in person in 3 months, 6 months, and look at us today, right? So I think being able to just work closely and know that there's going to be some hiccups along the way, right? But as long as we are core to who we are, we're authentic, we're still bringing back programs that make sense, that we're still going to get that awareness and breakthrough.
Has it changed how you've thought about what you look for in a partner, Dave? Like the learnings coming out of the last few years, or has it changed your perspective just generally on what partnerships add? And
I'd say a little bit. So we're still looking for the right partners. You probably need to look at them through a slightly different prism. You're reaching people in a different place than you might have 2 years ago. So it probably leads you down a slightly different path of who you end up working with. So Yeah, but fundamentally no, but just yes, I'd say on the fringes.
Yeah. What did those like those 2 months when you're kind of in hibernation mode, if you will, from marketing, what did your daily, what were their daily check-ins? You talked a little bit about how you have seen your partner agency as like an extension of your team, but like what were those conversations like? How much were you informing each other, and how much were you waiting to turn the lights on?
I think I talked to Jackie more than I talked to my wife during those 2 months because we had some programs about to hit that were in-person programs where, large events where we would be at. And that kind of didn't happen anymore. So we had to start unwinding all of those things. At the same time, we're trying to look down the road and supplement it with something different to still maintain top mind awareness with consumers. So we were untying some knots while trying to, tie other knots over here. Jackie probably got sick of seeing me call every 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I think every day brought a new challenge that we were game for. And I think we had a lot of resilience and just trying to tackle everything that came our way. And I think, again, that open dialogue and having that relationship with Dave and the team made it easier, right? When you're working in silos and you're just kind of being thrown something and expected to come back with this, it doesn't always work as well, but when we're keeping an open dialogue and really understanding the goals and the objectives and trying to see that path to success, right, in all that clutter, I think it's really important to have that relationship where we truly, and I know Dave said, looking at Coyne as an extension of the team, that's across the board at Coyne how we work. It's essentially, I work at Coyne, but I work on Eggland's Best, right? I work on these clients, and we live, breathe their business, and try and learn it as best we can so that it is as if we are working for those companies, because that's where we're going to get the best value. And that's when we're going to be able to provide the best value. If we don't understand the brand and we're not living, breathing that every day, then we're not going to be coming back with partnerships that make sense or programs that make sense that are really going to hit that consumer.
And I'll add one thing to that, Megan, just to tell you how closely we work together. Our New Jersey office, we are next month going to be kind of blowing it up and, reconfiguring it and putting in new lights and ceiling fans and all that stuff. So we're going to be homeless for about 2 months while they do this. We're actually, our people, New Jersey people, we're going to be moving into the Coyne office.
Moving in
2 to 3 days a week. They've been kind enough to set aside offices and cubes and a conference room for us to use. So we're going to be kind of like those annoying in-laws that move into their house is being rebuilt. That's going to be us.
You should have led with that, Dave. That's like the hallmark of you've now set a very high bar for partnerships.
Yeah, that's for sure.
How did that conversation all unfold? Was that an ask, or was it it makes sense, or did you come knocking on the door?
It was kind of an ask. Right now, Coyne has, they have a little bit of extra office space. So I knew it was a possibility. So, I called up and just said, hey, would this be a possibility? Because we're back in the office 5 days a week. We're a little flexible. Consumer, our people work at home, 1 or 2 days a week, but we didn't want to just have 2 to 3 months of everyone just disappearing because we value some of the in-person collaboration. So I was trying to find a place where we could do that, and Coyne came to mind and called up, and they said, happy to have you.
Amazing. Amazing. Now you know that's like an RFP requirement. If they're willing to house you.
It's also nice because our office is probably 2.5 miles away from the Coyne office, so it's also convenient. So
yeah. Oh, I love it. Very good. Well, I know we've kind of really unpacked like post-pandemic and a bit about the value of your partnership. I think one of the resounding things is just like the longevity of that relationship has really led to trust and kind of like these areas of kind of ownership and the division of responsibility and the research and the ideas, and then the trust, Dave, from you to be able to say, like, turn it on or go, or green light things. And it is really interesting, but honestly, that proximity, especially as we're talking right now about like coming back to the office, and there's so much discussion around 4-day work weeks, or do we go back to the office? And this is just such a resounding storyline that I'm hearing in our industry in general about like the relationships, and that in person is just something that is so enhances our work so much when we are able to brainstorm in a room together or work together in a room. And so it's really interesting to see that played out in the fruits of 10 years of working together, and and whatnot there. So on that note, anything that you want to add that we should talk about?
I think the only other thing that we didn't get into is, we were talking about how partnerships can really, help brands meet a lot of objectives, right? New product launch, maybe you have a purpose campaign, but there are also, some watch outs, right? And some pitfalls that we've learned through our partnerships through Eggland's Best and even other brands that we work on at Coyne, just to make sure that you're truly, truly vetting. And I think that, a lot of times people get that kind of shiny object syndrome where it's like, oh, wow, like, did you see what Cheetos did? Or, Hidden Valley Ranch just came out with a diamond ring made with ranch in it because of carrots, which was so funny and so unique, right? It's so authentic. And Hidden Valley is just like known for doing these wacky things, right? So I think a lot of times clients may see them and be like, we want to do that. We want something like that. And I think we have to take a step back and say, that's awesome. Is it the right audience? Is that who you are as a brand? We need to make sure that it's authentic. We're not just diving in head first. And so that's where we're, again, we have this kind of results first approach at Coyne, where we really look ahead, as I was mentioning, and we kind of have the end in mind. And we want to make sure that we are like working really hard up front to vet that and make sure there is alignment and it's authentic, so that we can kind of see that road and that pathway to success. And I think it's important for brands to understand that partnerships can leave really great lasting impressions, but they can also have the potential to leave a negative impression. So you just have to be really careful and not to scare anyone from jumping into a partnership. But I think a well-vetted partner can really, really set the bar and just pave the way and create a blueprint for the success of future programs. And I know in our case, when we're vetting partners, we definitely now, from some challenges we've had in the past with certain partners, we ask for certain things. So, are there case studies that you can show us? Have you partnered with brands in the past? Do you have a sample metrics or KPIs reports? What kind of metrics can you deliver, right? Just things that are going to really kind of help manage that expectation up front, and even down to referrals. At this point, we'll say, hey, who have you guys worked with would love a referral. Again, you're going to get kind of the truth from that other side. And it's just another way to vet and make sure that that brand, that partner you're working with is going to be able to deliver on that expectation as well for you.
And the one thing I'd add to that, Jackie, is Coyne does a pretty good job, and we like to hold them to this. After we do a program or a partnership or an outside person we work with, let's look back. Let's be honest. What worked? What didn't work? What would we do differently? Would you do it again? Because a year from now or 2 years from now, we might be looking to doing something similar. Let's look back and what we learned. If the influencer or the spokesperson we talked about is not as technologically savvy as we had hoped, okay, now we know that's something to look for in the future to make sure we don't walk into the same bear trap again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
About that as a partner.
It sounds so. I think you bring up a good point, Jackie, that it really is a two-way evaluation. We talked a little bit about the relationship and like how it evolves over time, but also just determining if you're both good partners. And I think like that vetting process to know from an agency perspective, are we going to be able to deliver for this client as well? And setting yourself up as for success as an agency is really something to be mindful of too. And it's interesting. Have you had to call in the referrals before? Have you really done that? I think like there's a sense out there that like agencies at the end of the day, they want business. And so it's easy to like, to say that you can kind of shape and morph yourself into whatever that client needs. But I'm curious how you're able to weigh and evaluate that desire to close new business and new partnerships with also taking on a partner that makes sense for you.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to kind of relationship with, say, an Eggland as like a client, probably work a little bit different, but yeah, we want to make sure that we can deliver. And I think it comes down to Coyne PR. And one of the reasons I love working at Coyne is we are very transparent. And we're going to tell you if we can do this or we can't. We've had a number of pitches where we've said, you know what, I don't think we can deliver what you're asking. And, we kind of wish you the best of luck. And if you ever need this and this, like, we're here kind of thing. But we want to be honest, because we never want to get into a situation where we've overpromised and now we can't deliver, because that's probably the worst place to be. Because now when someone else requests a referral, and if that particular client, gets on, that person may say that Coyne isn't delivering, right? And so that's where we don't want to get into that trap, as you mentioned, Megan, right? We want to make sure that we're providing, sound counsel at all times for our clients. And, in us vetting partners for brands, right, and who we want to work with and who we want to bring to the table, whether big or small, right? Because there can be big partnerships, like I said, academic institutions, other brands, nonprofits, and then also smaller individuals, right, like influencers and experts. You need to make sure that, again, that everyone is on the same page and that roles and responsibilities are outlined, right? We can get into a place where, oh yeah, this all sounds great, and like the dream team partnership. And then you get into it and they're like, oh, well, we thought you were paying for that, or that's not in our budget. And how are we going to bring this to life? So we do a pretty good job of setting that all up in the beginning. And you have a contract, you have an agreement, right? You need to make sure that whether it's exchange of services or in kind or whatever it may be, there's some sort of formal agreement attached. And, that's what happens during that vetting process, which is why that is so critical. I would say the two most critical things are, number one, establishing what your brand's objectives are and what success is going to look like, right? So who you are, what are you trying to achieve before you get to the partner? And then when you get to that partner, just making sure there is alignment, vision alignment, mission alignment, across the board, and just managing those expectations for sure.
Awesome. Well, Jackie Peskin, Dave Holdsworth, thank you so much for being with us today, teaching us a little bit about partnerships, talking about your personal experience with the partnership between Eggland's Best and Coyne. And yeah, great to have you both here today.
Thank you, Megan. It's been fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. All right. This is the PRovoke Media podcast. Thank you for listening. And we'll be back next time. Thanks.